Hi friends, today I have 6 projects for you in the same rose garden theme as last week. That video I have linked at the end of this one in case you missed it. Our first Trash to Treasure project, I'm going to use a cracked teacup, saucer, E6000 glue, and a glass hurricane that I'll be repurposing as a cloche that came from a broken candlestick. Step 1, clean the glassware using hot soapy water. I used a magic eraser to remove stubborn marks. Step 2, lie the saucer face down and apply a generous amount of glue to the underside of the cup. Heads up, you will want to make sure that the pattern is lined up the way that you wish prior to placing the cup base onto the bottom of the saucer. Step 3, apply pressure and weight to the top of the cup until the glue has fully dried. Adding a glass cloche is optional. I repurposed a glass hurricane from a broken candlestick. This piece I will not be reselling because there was a large crack in the bottom of the teacup, but I thought that it would be great to be able to use in my home and for future displays on my blog and my channel. Let me know how you think this project turned out. Project number 2. Home decor made from wood scraps are a resourceful way to use up small pieces of those 2x4s you may have. Woodblock signs, shelf sitters, risers, and even little pumpkins are great sellers. You can hand paint them, apply transfers, ink stamps, decorative napkins, water slide decals, or even stencils. For this project, I used sanded 2x4 wood blocks, paint and brush, glue gun, faux flowers, and an ink stamp. You could even use a run transfer instead. Step 1, apply 2 coats of paint, allowing each coat to dry. Step 2, apply an ink stamp. I'm using the crockery ink stamp from IOD. Step 3, using hot glue and some faux florals and greenery, or any embellishment that you choose. I applied mine to the top, but you could also apply yours to the front and the sides. I did apply a generous amount of glue to each piece. And then when I had the front looking the way that I wanted, I added more greenery to the back to cover up some of the stems that were showing. Project number 3, we're going to take some book pages from a damaged book. Now the writing must be faded or very minimal for this project, but you could also use newspaper or sheet music instead. Materials and tools that you'll need: string, I use twine, scotch tape, a hole punch, glue stick, scissors, cardstock, and ink stamps, and an ink pad, along with your book pages. So step 1, you're going to carefully tear book pages from the binding. Now the edge that tore out of the book, that edge you're going to want to go towards the center of the paper, because you're going to want to cut that and make it a nice even line. So the 2 edges that were already pre-cut, I line those up on the edge of the cardstock and apply a generous amount of glue stick. Applying that down, back and forth all over the cardstock, and then smoothing the page down as you go. I recommend, if you will be making a few banners with the same size pennants, that you first may want to make a pattern of one. A pattern makes it easier and ensures that the pennants are all the same size. And for the next step, you'll want to take a hole puncher and cut out 2 holes up at the top. That's where you're going to put your string through. And then make sure that your pattern continues to stay lined up and cut out the bottom. Step 6, it is time to apply the letters to your banners using ink stamps. You can use a ruler to make sure that each letter is lined up, or you can do it by eye. So once all of your ink stamps have been applied, then it's time to string your banner. I estimate how much twine I will need and cut it before I start to string the banner. I try to leave at least a foot, if not more, on each end, along with about 8 inches per page, depending on the width of the page and how much space you want in between each pennant. I start on the left side, stringing one pennant at a time. Be sure that you leave at least a foot of extra string on either end for hanging. Then I turn it over and put a piece of tape on the back of the cardstock over the string to hold them all in place. When you have them all taped on, you can make sure that both of your end pieces are the same length and cut off any extra. Project number 4. If you watched last week's video, you may remember the vintage inspired wood spindles I created. This project that we're going to do today using clothespins is similar and quick to make. Materials and tools needed are vintage clothespins, paint and a brush, small ink stamps, twine, and optional white wax or any type of florals and greenery. I will show a set painted, one not painted, and a set with white wax only. Apply ink stamps. The small stamps I purchased from the Dollar Tree a couple years ago. I'm not sure if they still offer them. I also use partial ink stamps of larger ones. You can put them on any which way that you choose. When I think that I've applied enough inks, then I put mine in a set of 3, wrap them in twine with 2 of the pins on the bottom and 1 on the top. But you can put them in any quantity that you choose. For some, I hot glue some florals onto the twine, or I leave them plain. Even though they're very tiny, what would some of your ideas for embellishing these be? Here are what the unpainted clothespins look like if you apply a coat of white wax and wipe it back. Project number 5. I never pass up a wood sign, and this one that I rescued from a junk pile had definitely seen better days. I sanded the entire sign and painted it with 1 coat of white acrylic paint. I purposely left some spots on there without paint because I wanted to have an aged look. I'm going to grab one of my favorite stencils and just use a portion of it where it says Vintage Finds. And if you'd like to check out this stencil and more, I recommend going over to stencilsmith.com. And if you use the coupon code CreativeDIY, you'll get 15% off your order. And here's a sneak peek of some of the stencils that I just found over on their site that I'm going to add to my collection. If it's easier for you, I posted the link up above and down below in the description box for you. I do recommend using painter's tape. Usually I have frog tape, but I was sitting down, had everything else out on the table, didn't want to get up. So I managed to actually hold it into place and I lined it up. And I also did not have my stencil brush or my sponge. So I just made the best of it and it came out pretty well. After I stenciled this part on, I wanted to take the arrow and add down to the bottom. I did wait a few minutes and let the paint dry because I was afraid that the stencil was going to smear it. I lined it up and added that arrow on there. Then I took it outside with my orbital sander and went all along the edges and up and over the paint just to give it a little bit more of an aged look. I'm happy with the way that it turned out. And don't you guys love when you get an item for free and you can totally transform it with nothing invested but your time? For project number 6, we will transform this metal tray that has a dent and some surface rust, similar to the technique that I shared in a previous video and post on my blog, with a couple small changes. Using steel wool to get off some of the surface rust and then spraying it with 2 coats of the Krylon Fusion 5-in-1 paint and primer. This gives the tray a nice solid base coat. Step 3, mix salt with paint to create texture, or you can use baking soda like I used on the previous tray. No matter which one you use, the paint will thicken up a little bit after it sits there for a few minutes, so keep that in mind. You can always add a touch of water to thin it back out. Now, brush that textured paint on every which way. You're going to want to do it diagonally, horizontal, vertical, even in some swirls, because you want to create texture. It may take a little while to have your piece dry thoroughly. I did put a fan in front of mine. And then I grabbed some white wax and some cinnamon and nutmeg. And I also grabbed some antique wax from Waverly. And we're going to brush on a lot of white wax all over it. Let it sit on there for a couple minutes and then wipe it back. Now this piece is definitely more dramatic than the last piece that I did. The more layers that you apply and wipe back, the more subtle and blended in your end product will be. I didn't have the time invested in it that I did in the last one. And this finished piece needs to have a bolder look because it's going to be used as a photo prop for a photographer. So typically it's going to be further away in the distance. So after about 20 minutes of layering the antique wax on and the white wax and then wiping them back, I'm adding some white wax in some of the corners and along the edges to add highlights and a softer look. The next step is to apply sealer all over the entire piece. I use Dixie Belle's flat top coat. And again, I brush this on every which way to keep that texture going. You can create lighter colors to give a different finished look. And you can apply this technique to glass and even plastic to create a look of pottery. While the sealer is still damp, I'm taking the cinnamon and nutmeg and applying it any place that I want to create that rust look. And this is one of the parts that I went really heavy on. And I think it was honestly because I was in a rush. What I would recommend doing instead of sprinkling it directly on there, even though you can brush it off fairly easy, you would have more control if you dump the cinnamon and nutmeg like onto a bowl or plate and then sprinkle it onto the surface that you're working on. I definitely got heavy-handed and I would have preferred if I didn't. Now the nutmeg is going to give a little bit redder of a tint than the cinnamon, and it gives an added texture. After the sealer has a chance to dry, you can always wipe off any of the spices that didn't get coated. You could leave it the way that it is, or you can apply another coat of sealer up over the top. And this type of finish is very durable. The tray that I showed you earlier, I actually kept for 2 years, used it before I put it in my booth and sold it, and it did sell right away. And to me, it looks like aged rust cast iron. I will see you in a few days. This upcoming Sunday, I have a collaboration with Arrows DIY that you will not want to miss. Friends, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a super blessed week, and I will see you this Sunday.